Ivan, hi.
Hi.
Thanks.
Nice to see you again.
Yes, again. This is our second meeting, second interview. Thanks for your time. You know, it's very difficult to communicate with the representative of European Parliament because every week we have new geopolitical, regional, political circumstances, economical circumstances. My first question, what happens now inside European Parliament if we speak about support of Ukraine?
We are united. And I think the best message is that European Parliament is united. There are many issues and many opinions, 27 countries, 8 different political groups. But in terms of Ukraine, we are united. That's good news. We have to keep this unity. And it is realized in different steps, like we recently prolonged this customs-free regime by 1 year, which is a very strong message to support Ukraine. Of course, before we adapted visa-free regime, hopefully this is visible for Ukrainian citizens. We also adopted this or extended this zone for telephones without roaming charges. So some practical experience and practical steps for Ukrainian people. As we know, also Ukrainians can now study and work within the European Union. It is only temporary, but I think it's a very important signal for many people, refugees from Ukraine.
So political support is quite strong if we speak about Parliament, European Parliament, and about Ukraine.
It is. I think it is very strong political support, but also what continues is humanitarian support and as well as financial support. From European Parliament, there is not a problem. It's a matter of fact that on the level of European Council, as we know, Hungary blocked recently €500 million financial help, but I'm sure we will find a way how to go ahead and we will continue with our support. We have to understand, European Parliament, Commission and Council consists of different member states and they have sometimes different opinion, but in terms of European Parliament, once again, unity is there.
It's very important because you know that you mentioned one thing about the Europe and Ukraine, about unity, and your country, your native country, Slovakia, also overcome this complicated in the 90s process of integration. And now the war changed a lot of things, and Ukrainians got candidacy to be a candidate to the European Union. What does it mean for the social, political, and for all our country? For what we should be ready in such kind of complicated circumstances, but I think it's an exam for the country and for society to be the member of European Union.
Right. It is the road. It is not the step from one day to another. It is the road, and it's very important to understand that going on this road, we can learn and we can improve our lives even during accession process. So not only membership is the change is
preparation for membership.
Exactly, preparation every day. And Ukraine is not starting from zero. Ukraine has adopted already more than 50% of the European legislation, which is important. There is a lot of discussion about corruption. Of course, there is corruption also in every European country, but we have to minimize it. But in Ukraine, there is stricter anti-corruption legislation like in many European countries. So one thing is what is on the paper, but another thing is how it is implemented. And I think this implementation of acquis communautaire, so-called, so European legislation, it improves quality of life, it improves democracy, it improves, let's say, decision-making process, which is closer to citizens, to the municipal level and to the citizens. I think just remembering the situation from Slovakia, it was a really learning process for us that power is among citizens. Citizens decide about future. I think this is very important change of mindset, that we cannot wait for decisions and somebody else would take care about us. No, we have to take care about our future, about our destiny. That's a mental mindset which we have to understand, and it is about participation of citizens, it is about the activity.
Involvement of the process. Yeah?
Exactly.
You know that some politicians in Ukraine use and in Europe the integration of Ukraine in the European Union because of the other motivation process. I mean, one say that we will be in Ukraine in a year, in European Union in a year. The other say that we'll be in European Union in a 2 year. The other politicians in European Union say wait, it's a long story, it will be in 10 years maybe. So as I understood correctly, it's impossible to emphasize one date. So it's a process, depends on the many circumstances.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's impossible to say when. To be fair, I know that there are different expectations, 1 to 3 years on one side, and on the other side 5 or to 10 years we come to the agreement, but it will depend on the, once again, on the implementation of European legislation, but even more importantly on the preparedness of Ukraine to be member, of the preparedness of citizens. And there must be referendum. I know that there is a lot of pro-European mood in Ukraine, so there would be no problem at all. But people must be ready. And you know, this is not decision for short time. This is decision for future. This is probably the most important decision for country. I remember, based on Slovak experience, it was not easy even in our case. In 90s, we were only one country which was expelled from EU integration processes, because at the time our government didn't keep really democratic rules. And after the change of, say, change of direction in 1998, after election, country speeded up, and we basically we did this accession process in 3 years. So this is just one example. It was very fast. At the time, it was the fastest accession process in 10 or among 10 countries. But just to give you another example, for example, Northern Macedonia is already 15 years candidate country, and the accession process has not started yet. So it's another corner. So sometimes you can do in a couple of years. On the other side, if there is not a political agreement or also geopolitical situation, you can wait for many years. But having said that, everybody understands that even from geopolitical situation, even in terms of neighborhood policy, even in terms of enlargement of EU, it is very, very important that Ukraine would be member of EU. So this is different situation, and not only Ukraine, Moldova, for example. Because Ukraine,
Georgia,
Moldova, maybe Georgia, but this is Georgia didn't get yet candidate status. Ukraine and Moldova,
we have.
Yes, which is important. And now we push in the European Parliament. We push to start the accession talks. Maybe next year, but definitely in 1 year as of now. So it will be important to start officially accession talks. And I'm happy that your government is pushing for that. We are pushing for that from European perspective as well, that it must be reflected, our cooperation, in concrete steps which will be opening chapters. And as we go through these chapters, it is learning process which will improve the quality of life itself, because you know this let's say this process will manage to come closer, not only legislation but people from social, cultural perspective. Economical perspective is very important. We talk that customs-free zone is extended by 1 year, and I'm sure it is not the end. It will be prolonged and prolonged, which is the opportunity for Ukrainian companies, which will be another learning process. And this is not only good, I have to say, for Ukraine, this is good for EU, because if there is more competition from economical perspective, more products, more services, it will improve quality, and it will press the prices. So it is win-win process.
I like your estimation, and I believe you, and I understand that a lot of depends on us, on Ukraine.
Exactly.
Yes.
I think more, to be fair, more depends on Ukrainians, but we can only push for this accession process, but conditions must be fulfilled by member states. That's the reality.
I have 2 more questions, the last questions, and I want to back to the political situation and the regional situation concerning the fight against Russia. I know the European Parliament is a very important political institution who tried to improve post-Soviet situation, I would say, because there is Moldova, there is Georgia, and you mentioned that it's a very complicated post-Soviet legacy. So what happened in this sector, do you have any initiative to improve the post-Soviet civil society? Do you help to the Russian opposition, which is in European Union? Because transformation, as you many times mentioned, of the post-Soviet reality is a very important political future for the security of Europe.
Absolutely. I would highlight three issues which are very important. One, as we already touched, this is democratic rules. People have to understand that it is their decision and they have to be active. That's very important. That's key. Secondly, economical perspective. There must be transformation of economy. There must be support for small, medium companies. There must be really free market, and with the chances for everybody. So democratical, economical transformation. And thirdly, let's say civic society and those NGOs and non-profit companies which play very important role. So as opinion makers. So this is not only about politicians and citizens, but it is also about the global society which must be transferred and understand that this is our vision. Involvement of civic sector is very important also in this society, and communication between citizens and those organizations.
Okay, it's a complex of questions. Yeah. My first and last question concerning the situation in European Union generally, because next year we have elections in European Parliament, and now I see that a lot of politicians use topic of Russia, use topic of Ukraine, the economical situation. How serious this process, these trends can influence on the political map of European Union next year?
That's a key issue and key questions for next year, because we know the unity in the parliament is there. What will be in the next period, we will see. It depends on elections. Therefore, it's very important that we have to educate society, we have to educate voters, and we have to involve them into our decisions and understand that the support for Ukraine, it is support for future of Europe. That Ukraine is on the board. Ukraine fights not only for their homeland, Ukraine fights for all of us. And I think it will be one of the most important topic during next year's election, European election. What will be next, nobody knows. It will depend on the result of elections or to the European Parliament. But I'm very positive. Based on current situation, I do believe that most people do understand that, and also the result of elections will be very let's say fair, in this term that it will not only reflect the will of citizens, but it will reflect the democratic values and reflect the future for Europe. What is necessary to do in Europe, that we have to, for example, not only enlarge Europe by Ukraine, Moldova, and maybe also by others, but also we have to improve our security. I think current situation teaches us that we have to improve European security, and we cannot do it without Ukraine. Ukraine is a part of solution. It is not part of problem. This is part of solution in terms of security, in terms of energy, in terms of green transformation. If we are talking more about those issues, your membership would be natural and would be beneficial for both of sides and for everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for your estimation, for your interview, and I hope we meet next time in European Parliament.
I do hope so.
Thank you.
Thanks.